What if you want to encourage others, but you don't know what to say? Notice the lessons we learn from the Apostle Paul's example in this morning worship presented by Brother David Schafer.
Packed my bags. Last night, pre-flight. 0 hour. 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high. As a kite by then.
Wait, hold on. No, Tibor, I think you're playing the wrong clip. He didn't say William Shatner. He said David Schafer. I know they're somewhat similar in their speaking, but let's hear from David Schafer.
We go to the door, we read Matthew 24:7. We ask, what do you think? Are the wars, famines, and earthquakes that we've seen in recent years the same as ever, or a distinct fulfillment of Bible prophecy? And what is the message? That Jehovah is real, that Jehovah is alive. Jehovah did this for you. Don't miss out. You can succeed with Jehovah's help. That was Paul's answer to a simple request for a word of encouragement. That's why Paul made disciples. Why? Why return? It would have been so easy for him to think, we've had a pretty good run here. I helped the ruler of Cyprus into the truth. I performed my first miracles, striking Elymas blind. We started new congregations in Pisidian Antioch, Iconium, Lystra, Derbe. I endured all manner of hardships, was beaten up and stoned and left for dead. Successful missionary tour, but I need to regroup. No, he didn't think that way. Why? Because the needs of the congregation outweighed his own personal feelings or fears.
Logic clearly dictates that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Or the one.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I just find it so funny how similar David Schafer is in his speaking to a certain Star Trek actor. And if I'm being completely honest, it's more than simply being amused by it. I actually find it very distracting and irritating how breathlessly he describes, or how breathlessly he gets his thoughts across. He's probably, in his mind, a brilliant orator. And I think lots of Jehovah's Witnesses will be listening to him thinking, wow, this guy he really knows his Bible, and he's speaking so quickly, which, let's face it, is at least a welcome difference from the very slow, infantilizing way that other speakers talk. But just because he's speaking fast doesn't make what he has to say any more profound. He's just saying very basic ideas very, very quickly and trying to do as much name dropping as possible. You can see straight through it when you've actually done this gig in terms of giving talks on the platform. He's trying to insert as many little factoids as possible to impress his audience. But really all he's saying, apart from talking about the need to make Jehovah alive, Jehovah needs to be made alive. It's not good enough that he is alive. He needs to be made alive in the minds of his followers. He needs a helping hand in that regard. The basic thrust of his talk is, as you saw there in the Star Trek clip, about the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the one. This is essentially a talk about the need for sacrifice and about the need for, to invoke Elton John again, and about the need for Jehovah's Witnesses to exert themselves on behalf of the organization.
Likewise today, our brothers are putting the needs of the disciples ahead of their own comforts. Do you remember these scenes from Jehovah's Witnesses, Faith in Action, Part 2, Let the Light Shine? Brother Pillars explains that when he refused to salute the flag in Winsboro, Texas, he was beaten up and hanged. Thankfully, the rope broke, and he survived to tell the story. What the video doesn't tell us is that Oscar Pillars was a circuit overseer. So months later, guess where it was time for him to return? Winsboro, Texas. Now, in the months since the hanging incident, the brothers hadn't been preaching downtown. They were preaching in the rurals. And Brother Pillars reasoned that if he didn't preach downtown, the brothers may never get the courage to preach there. So he checked out all the territories within city limits. They worked there all morning, had a beautiful time, no negative incident, except at the very last door, a woman said, "Say, you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses, aren't you?" He said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." She said, "You know, we hanged one of you people here, and we'll do it again." Well, he didn't tell her that he was the one that they hanged. But what a beautiful example of standing with your brothers, putting their needs ahead of your own feelings.
I don't think that's beautiful. I think that is chilling. We have a circuit overseer. For those of you who don't know, a circuit overseer is a bit like a bishop. He has oversight of a number of congregations, and it's his job to go around from congregation to congregation, essentially making sure they're all on the same page and they're all doing things according to the way the organization wants things done. And he's referring to a period in the organization's history when Jehovah's Witnesses had a great deal more persecution in the United States. He's describing a scenario in which a circuit overseer is literally hanged, unsuccessfully, thank goodness, but he's literally strangled with rope. And David Schafer is applauding the fact that irresponsibly and at risk to his own well-being, the circuit overseer returned to the same neighborhood and put himself in danger, put his life on the line, because he wanted to set a good example to the local congregation. I would say that's a profoundly irresponsible thing to do. And believe me, I'm really not down for giving in to bullies. Those of you who know me well will know that I don't do bullies, and anyone who tries to shut me up is going to find that I end up saying the same thing even louder and, doubling my efforts. But I think this is a different situation, to be honest. This was a tinderbox. This was a period in the organization's history when, again, it was a kind of a life or death situation. I mean, he could have literally died when they hanged him, and he's going back into that environment. He's putting himself at risk. This organization appreciates when Jehovah's Witnesses do that. And we saw the full reality of this expectation in Malawi. Thumbnail here, if Tibor is gracious, to my video on the betrayal of Jehovah's Witnesses in Malawi, because there's a lot more to this story, and the double standard with the way Jehovah's Witnesses in Mexico were treated compared to their fellow believers in Malawi during the same period. But this is an organization that celebrates its followers martyring themselves, if necessary, for the sake of the good news. It really doesn't mind hearing examples of Jehovah's Witnesses being beaten, being tortured, being hanged, in some cases suffering sexual violence, as was the case in Malawi, or even being murdered, as was the case in Malawi, so long as it has some encouraging stories to include in its propaganda.